Hey YouTube, here with my wild hair. I'm going to talk about bike quality and what you should look for when you're looking for a bike. And I'm not going to be a bike snob. I'm just going to tell you where it's okay to save money and where it's not. So let's turn you back around and you can look at my Trek. So first thing is comfort. You should always look for something that is good to touch. Like, you could save money on those grips and put junk grips on there and just say, well, the rider will pay for it later and replace it. So grips are kind of an iffy subject. But the next thing for this came with decent grips. I don't particularly like those ones that have palm wrist on them, but they save money there, and it's okay in a way. If you know you're going to buy a bike and you're going to put something on it that better suits your needs, then I guess that's not an issue for you. The next thing is, starting from top to bottom, is adjustability in your stem. There's nothing worse than buying a bike and not being able to make it comfortable for you to ride. You know how many bikes are sold every year that get hung up in the garage and 20 years later they're put out in a yard sale? More than you think. And they might ride them occasionally. So if you're an occasional rider, I don't recommend you spend any more money than you need to, because there's no reason to spend that $2,000 and hang up a bike, or an electric bike in this case, and the battery go dead and not be able to recharge it, and then you just have a paperweight because you can't even really sell it for anything other than parts. A lot of these manufacturers are pop-up manufacturers, come in one day and they're gone the next, and they use some proprietary crap that you can't get a hold of. So keep that in mind. So the stem and fork, I personally would rather have a simple bike with the fewest moving parts that can go wrong. So in my bike, since I'm riding on a hard surface trail most of the time, I don't need a front suspension. I can lower the tire pressure if it is jarring me too much. So most of the e-bikes are sold online come with a thumb shifter. I like the rapid fire shifters the best, and there is some other brands out there that make the same thing, micro. It's raining, by the way, that's why I stopped. I'm going to see if it's going to blow over or if I'm going to turn around and go home. So the shifters are important, especially if you have dexterity issues. If you have trigger thumb or something that causes you to have problems with shifting, you want to go with something like that is really simple to actuate, and it doesn't take much pressure to actuate either. Neither does the thumb shifter, but thumb shifters are from the 80s. That one that is on the electric is literally from the 80s, maybe even the 70s. 80s. Before that, there were down tube shifters. So we'll say that's 80s technology. So, and the next thing is brakes. Cable actuated brakes, if you're not a bike mechanic, you should avoid them, because you're going to spend more time fiddling with those darn things than they're worth. So go opt for hydraulic brakes. They're the easiest to mess with. They hardly ever need any maintenance. You can literally get thousands of miles out of a set of pads on hydraulics, because one, you're not over braking to try to stop. The brakes are easier to modulate, meaning you can squeeze them and feel how much brake pressure you're getting, versus cable one. Cable brakes tend to have the crappiest cables that come with them, and they continually stretch until they finally give up. So on my electric, I've upgraded the cables, the rotors, the disc. I've spent more money than it would have cost me to just go buy a set of hydraulics. Now, I could get away without the cutoff on them, but the bike will malfunction if you don't have the cutoffs. Eventually it'll give you an error. But they do make hydraulic bikes with cutoff, the motor cutoffs built into them that are compatible with your electric bike. And I think Electric told me in an email that they're planning to offer their hydraulic brakes as an upgrade option for people who have older generation bikes. They should fit. It shouldn't be an issue. I think on the shock it uses a different mount, but you can buy the mounts fairly easily, and they could come up with a retrofit kit. If it costs less than $130, it'd be a great option for you. So we got brakes, we've got shifters, we've got grips. The next thing is most people are going to see is the seat post and seat. You want to have the simplest seat post as possible. The fewer the moving parts, the less that can go wrong. Seats with springs, sorry people, they're going to break. One of these days you're going to end up walking your bike home because you can't sit down on the seat. It will happen to you eventually, unless you're buying a Brooks. If you buy a Brooks with the seat with springs in it, they guarantee them for life, and they're built to take the abuse that you can put out. Whereas all those Cloud9s and all those Chinese companies, Cloud9, for you guys that don't know this, does not warranty your seat if you weigh more than 200 pounds. They will tell you you exceed the weight capacity of the seat, even though it's hard to even find any weight capacity on their seats when they sell them online. They want to sell you on a seat and hope that it lasts. So keep that in mind. If you buy a Cloud9, you weigh over 200 pounds, you have no warranty. You just spent $40 for a paperweight. Karen has 3 spring seats at home, and including one from Electric that isn't worth the powder to throw it in the garbage. 3 of them. They're still sitting in the garage somewhere. All of them with springs. 2 of them fell apart while she was riding. I had to go home, get the truck, and load the bike in the truck to get her home. So keep that in mind. So seat, next thing you could buy is a seat post. If you buy the electric one, it's no different than the one that's on this bike. It's the same kind of seat post. Uses a spring and a rubber dampener in it. It works. The less you weigh, the better it will work. The more you weigh, the less it will work. So I would recommend you buy a high-end seat post and be done with it and not worry about it, not have to worry about it breaking. As you can see, mine has adjustments for angles and the clamps. It's pretty reliable. You shouldn't have problems with it. So you're going to look at a seat post that doesn't have a bar and a nut on it. I don't have one with me, but the ones that come on the electric was the first thing I changed out on our electrics when I bought them. I knew that they can be a problem. They strip out. It has little knurled nuts in there, and if they strip out, your seat will flop all over the place. You've seen those BMX bikes that kids are riding around with the seat that flops everywhere. That's because they stripped out those knurling on their clamps. And I'm only going to mention the seat post clamp on one time because Electric uses a cheap one that tends to stretch and keeps stretching until it finally breaks. It'll be something some people will have no problems with, you 150 pounders and lower, and the people that, like me, that had problems from the get-go, couldn't keep their seat post set. Maybe people just don't notice it, but the seat post shouldn't be moved. If you can find one on a bike that doesn't even have a lever on it, that just uses an Allen screw to tighten it up, they're going to be the best one. Next is pedals. These are plastic. They're made by Bontrager. I'll use them until they wear out, and then I'll buy something else. So pedals are a personal choice. Some people will buy shoes and cleated pedals that will lock into their shoes and But I don't recommend that unless you're an experienced rider. The next thing is you will not notice the difference between quality and derailleurs. If it shifts right, if it's adjusted right, it'll shift right, and you won't notice it at all. Don't spend your money unless it's time to replace it. That's why the ones on the electrics are still on there. I've talked about replacing them, but I'm going to ride it until I get my life out of it. A good quality one, and this is not a particularly good quality one, this is their midline derailleur, should last 25, 30,000 miles without a problem. The one on the electric, I have the advantage of having 1,000 plus people that talk to me about their bikes, and some of them have had to replace them about 4,000 or 5,000 miles. The jockey wheels wear out, and then it doesn't want to shift right anymore. So that's not going to really matter. The hub drive, here's my thoughts on mid-drive and hub drive. I wanted a mid-drive for efficiency, not for hill climbing. This bike will climb hills just fine, but it's not going to do it unless you're pedaling because it's a class 1. The gearing on the bike is okay. When it comes time to replace that cassette, I'll put something different on it. Something better suited for my riding style and riding conditions. On that lowest gear, you could probably climb up a hill that's 15-20%, no problem. But I don't need that here in this area because it is not hilly. So hub drive, if you live in an area and do most of your riding in a flat area, hub drive is going to be the best choice unless you're riding 40, 50 miles a day. Then hub drive's not going to be your best choice. Heat is the enemy of hub drives and mid drives. If you climb hills in the wrong gear on a mid drive, you can burn out the motor just like you can on a hub drive. Mid drive requires gear changing. Hub drive, don't care what gear you're in, but a mid drive you must adjust the gearing unless you really just want to burn up a motor. So keep that in mind. Mid-drive, hub drive, it depends on your terrain on what you need. Mid-drive is more efficient. This 400-watt battery will outlast the electric's 480-watt battery by probably 15 miles. So the mid-drive is a lot more efficient. As far as I'm concerned, the electric could be a class 1. I don't use the throttle for anything pretty much. So we've got the brakes. Don't waste your money worrying about what shifter it comes on. As long as it's adjusted right, it'll work. Derailleur. So the trend in bikes has been going away from multi-gears on the front. It used to be mountain bikes had 3 gears on the front, say a 26, a 36, and a 46. Now most of them are running smaller gears because they realize that most people aren't buying mountain bikes to go out ride on the road and go flat out all the time. This has a 38 tooth on the front, and I probably would say the biggest one on the back is a 36 tooth. So it's almost 1-to-1 there. So keep that in mind. If you got a choice in gearing, look for something that's better suited for your terrain. If you're a RVer and take the bike all over the country, overbuy your bike. Buy something that will handle any terrain that you ride on. And the last thing I'm going to talk about, folding mechanism. If you do not need a folding mechanism on your bike, if you're never going to fold it, don't buy one with a folding mechanism. It's just something else that will wear out. You might think that folding mechanism won't wear out, but eventually it will, and it will cause you problems. Mine creaks once in a while, but I just put a little thin layer of grease on it, and it's fine. But we fold our bikes, and that's the only reason why I bought it is because we throw them in the RV when we're traveling. This I have a mount for the back of the pickup. It's only been out of this area one time. We took it up to the UP to ride them, and they sat in the truck in the back of the truck the whole time and didn't move because it was more trouble to get the bike down. And unfolding and folding the electric isn't no fun either. So I guess if you're gonna just throw it on a rack on the back of your RV, find something that doesn't have a folding mechanism. Do yourself a favor. Now, if you're a 100-pound person, 150-pound person, you may never have problems out of that folding mechanism. But if you're a heavier person, then eventually you'll wear it out if you ride it every day. And that's part of the reason why I have this Trek here, was because I bought the Trek to ride every day. Tires are cheaper. I can find a set of tires for this bike for $30 out the door, and it's the 5 seconds to change a tire. If I ain't talking on a video, it doesn't take me any time. Well, folks, that's what to look for in a bike. Buy your bike based on the range you need. E-bike, if you need a long range bike, look for something that has a large capacity battery or two. If you don't need the folding mechanism, don't buy it if you don't need it. If you can find a bike in the same price range that doesn't have a folding mechanism, that's going to be your best choice. Don't waste your money on your derailleurs. I'm just summarizing. Go for the better brakes, the better seats, the better seat post, and the better shifters. Have a great day. Hope this helps. Comment, like, subscribe. Do what you do. Have a great day.